Though I wasn't necessarily going to do another update so soon. I was just going to wait until the situation has resolved itself because, as bad as it may be, like one way or the other, this is going to be resolved within the next 24 hours. But there has just been a few updates. The sub, of course, still has not been found at the time of recording this video. There are now multiple ships involved in the search using sonar, ROVs, and possibly even other technologies that haven't quite been clarified yet. Something that was not confirmed in the previous video, but has more or less been confirmed now, is the fifth person on board the submersible, who I believe is acting as the pilot, is actually Stockton Rush, who is the CEO of Ocean Gate Expeditions. Essentially the whole outfit that actually runs the expeditions involving the Titan. Still not seen anything, but there has been updates. Some of the sonars that have been implemented have, although not seen anything, have detected some sound, some, I take it, unusual like noise coming from somewhere deep down in the ocean in that general area. Now, one of the working theories, and it's optimistic, and I'm hoping it is true, is that it is a sign of life and that the people on board the submersible are still alive. And something that does give a little bit of credence of this is P.H. Nargeolet himself, who was on board. Now, I read this in a little bit of an article earlier today, and I also checked out Historic Travel's channel just briefly before doing my own update, and he kind of confirmed this as well. There is a Navy technique where if naval personnel is lost at sea in a submersible, in a pretty much this exact situation, where they should bang on the hull, make as much noise as they can at 30-minute intervals. Basically just as a way that if there is a sonar detection in the area looking for them, it will pick up the noise, because noise actually does travel quite far in the ocean. They may not be able to pinpoint it exactly, at least from like a brief moment of noise, but it is give them an area of where to focus in. So there is a theory, and hoping so, that either Nargeolet or someone else is employing that technique now by banging on the submersible in an effort to basically try and draw people to it. So I hope that's the case, and I hope that, although they haven't found them yet searching those areas, they will do it that way. Now, one of the other big questions, of course, is what exactly are they going to do when they are found? Because they are almost certainly at the bottom or near the bottom of the ocean. Maybe there is some kind of technique that hasn't really been leaked to the press or anything. I do know in raising objects from those depths in the past, including the Titanic, when they've raised artifacts, they use lift bags, basically bags of dense liquid, but are lighter than water to, you know, add buoyancy and bring things up. Like, they could perhaps attach something like that to the sub. Even the most basic thing, and probably something I would do if I was somehow in charge and found this, would just attach a basic winch to the submersible, like attached to like cables, and have one of the surface ships pull them up if they are found and it is safe to do. So I don't know, maybe the idea is to do something like that, we just don't know yet. But the unfortunate thing is as much as I don't want to be as dramatic as the media is in pointing this out, time is kind of running out. The 90 hours of like emergency oxygen, let's put it this way, they've got, I think, about 12 hours left at this. I might be getting the time zone slightly wrong, but it's not long anyway. It's probably like half a day left at most. So we are just hoping that they get to be rescued within that amount of time. Like, they manage to find them, they manage to put something in action, all those on board will be saved. Yeah, we're still just waiting, and again, I'll be spending the rest of this evening and well, a good chunk of tomorrow just looking out for updates. But as cold and as grim as it is to say, you know, one way or another, we're gonna know in a day how things have went. Anyway, that's enough for this little update. There is more to this video after this point. I just feel like I need to do like maybe a little bit of explanation on the concepts of like water pressure and implosions for people who may not be too familiar with those, like those who've never really looked into it before. Anyway, that's what the rest of this video is. If you don't need to know on that stuff, by all means, you don't need to watch it. And I thank you for watching so far, and just hoping for a happy resolution to this, and we'll see tomorrow. Hello, so I'm just doing this quick video, kind of as a reaction to some of the stuff I've seen online, like especially like Twitter and some other commentary from like people of the general public, and it's not so much to do with like the social or the moral issues surrounding the Lost Titan. It's just about some basic ignorance, and that can be a bit of a hefty term, ignorance. When I use it now, I don't necessarily mean it in a totally negative way, just the simple definition of like just not knowing something. And a lot of comments I see online, you know, some of the spicy stuff there, but the ones which aren't necessarily spicy do just kind of display perhaps a lack of understanding of some of the things, like people are making comments or like asking questions. And I think it's very easy that when you do kind of know a bit about a subject, like I know a little bit about Titanic and I know a little bit about ocean exploration because it's just an interest of mine, it's something I've looked into years. It's easy when you do know about something to like forget that other people don't necessarily, like especially if it's not an issue that comes into their regular day lives or it's not something they're interested in. So I just thought I'd do like a really quick video just to kind of do a really basic explanation on the idea of water pressure and water pressure at the depth of the Titanic and why it's an issue, and just the concept of implosion, which is linked to that, which, you know, goes without saying when I'm talking about that, especially in regards to the recent missing submarine. It might get a little bit grisly, so if you already understand these like basic concepts, and if you don't want to like kind of think about like that potential unfortunate fate of the missing people, then by all means just skip this. I'm kind of just going to explain it in the way it was explained to me, just very basically as a child, before I really kind of knew about such stuff. So, a lot of the news reports, the stories you're following, will make mention of the water pressure at the depth of the Titanic being an issue and like a potential cause of whatever disastrous happened to the submarine. So you might not quite understand what's meant by water pressure. So pressure, put really basically, is force. We're actually kind of subject to pressure every day. We're subject to pressure in the atmosphere, like the very air we walk around in contains kind of a weight and a force that's always acting on us. We don't realize it because we're, you know, life on the surface of the planet, including us, is like completely adapted to it. It's just the environment we live in. That's air pressure. I'm not going to explain it too much because it's not totally relevant. I'm going to talk mainly about water pressure as it applies to like the Titanic depth. Water pressure is basically the same thing, but water, liquid water, is heavier than like our atmosphere at surface level, so it's a bit different, but it also just makes it a bit easier to illustrate. So water pressure is essentially just the weight of the water acting on a person or something in the water itself. If you're swimming on top of the surface, or you're just like maybe just underneath it, just doing a little bit of a dive and coming back up, whatever, you're not going to notice it too much. Like you'll feel sort of the water acting on you because you're in the water. You're a bit more. It's different than just walking around on land. But that's fine. There isn't much water above you, or there's no water above you at all. You're at the top, so the forces and the weight of it doesn't affect you too much. Now, the way it kind of changes is the further down you go, the heavier the water around you, and specifically the water above you, is. And it's the weight of that water which has an effect on people and objects. Really basic way to explain it is this bottle of Bar Diet Cola has only a small amount of liquid in. It's very easy to hold and to drink out of. Well, this might illustrate the point a little bit better, and it's refreshing. So yeah, there's only a small amount of liquid here, so I can kind of feel the weight of that liquid, like moving around, you know. It pulls down a little bit, that's fine. Let's just say, for example, that's kind of the, if you're like that far underwater, like that's about how much liquid's like just pressing on you. It's nothing. But the way it changes is the deeper you get, the more water is above you and around you, so the more the weight pressing on you is. So, for example, a full bottle of Bar Diet Cola is heavier. It weighs more than just a little bit. So, example, I was swimming this far under the Ballard cooler. There's a definite difference. It's actually pressing way more on me. That's just the basic idea of water pressure. It's just the weight of the water around something. So the further down you go, the heavier and the greater the force of the water around you is pressing down on you. So how it applies to the Titanic is, and I have to remind myself of these numbers because I haven't looked at them for a while. It's approximately between 12,000, 13,000 feet, about 2.4 miles under the surface of the water. So there's essentially 2.4 miles worth of water pressing down. And this has a little bit of weight to it. Just imagine like 2.4 miles of this, like pressing down. That gives you an idea of how heavy it is. In fact, the relative water pressure at the Titanic's depth is about 6,000 psi. So the water that far down at the bottom of the ocean weighs about the same as having 35 elephants pressing down on top of like an object. So that's crazy. That's not something a person can survive. That's not something anyone can reach or swim down to. That's why we have submersibles. So yeah, water pressure is just that. It's the force of the water above you, and because Titanic is so far deep, the pressure of the water above it and around it is just so great that we can't go there without things like strong submersibles or send machines down in our place, like strongly built machines. That's basically an explanation there. Now, what happens when things do go wrong? This kind of links into one of the possible outcomes of this missing submarine. So if you don't want to think too much about it, there's a bit of a dark subject, so feel free just to click off. One of the things that can happen is something called an implosion, when something does go wrong. An explosion is, well, it goes outwards. It's like the force pushes stuff outwards, it explodes. Implosion is the exact opposite. It's things pressing inwards. So, example, Titanic depth, you've got like the weight of 35 elephants pressing something. There's mention that one of the possible things that happened to the sub is if the submarine isn't still intact, what's likely happened is there has been a catastrophic implosion, which would mean that everyone on that is gone. Like, it is just too late. Dark subject matter, but I do need to kind of explain this. And just basically the way that works is, imagine this can of iron brew. Yes, I have been to the shops today. Imagine this can of iron brew is a submarine or something similar. It's quite strong, it's perfectly sealed, so the inside of it is kept separate from the outside. So I can press down as hard as I can, but I'm not going to break the can because it is strong enough. The inside of it is sealed, it's protected from the pressure I'm putting on it on the outside. Just imagine my hand is the weight of the ocean pressing down. That's fine. But one of the possible outcomes, if there has been like a catastrophic accident at the depths, is there's been a hull breach. Breach is basically just a break in either the submarine itself or the porthole where a gap has formed, and that has led to an implosion. Basically the way that is, say I've got another can, but there is a gap in it, that basically allows the force from outside to press inwards. If there's nothing separating the inside of the can from the pressure on the outside, well, what happens? You get this. It just completely crushes the submarine or like anything else that is inside it. So that's kind of the worst case scenario, and that's one of the scenarios we're hoping haven't happened to the submarine, but that is basically how it was. If there was an accident, like if it had hit something, or there was a failing in the structure somewhere which caused a breach, then it's been crushed. Probably don't want to think about it too much. Now, it sounds strange to say this is like a bright side of that circumstance, if there is such a thing, but if this is what had happened, then it's mercifully quick. Like, that amount of pressure pressing down on a sub, if there is a breach that happens, the implosion is just so fast and just so powerful. Probably you wouldn't even register it was happening. It's just instant, like you're just there and then you're gone. In fact, if that is what happens, there'll bit morbid, grisly detail, but there probably won't even be that much identifiably human left. It would have been so quick, just there, and you're just gone in an instant. So if the worst came to the worst and that did happen, it's at least fast, not painful. It would have just happened in an instant. Anyway, that is some disturbing matter, and I didn't want to like gloat on the gory details of things. I just figured, like, yeah, I'm in my 30s now, but there's been times where I've talked to someone like my age or older who haven't understood some things I've been talking about. It's not because they're stupid, and if you don't understand this, it's not because they're stupid. It's just it's not something you've ever looked into. You might never have had to, and maybe you just don't understand. So, if this silly little random improvised explanation I've kind of went through now, if this helps at all, then good. But of course, if not, and you already know this stuff, you probably shouldn't have watched the rest of this video, because you're not going to learn anything new.